Danica Patrick, thank you for talking to us.
Hello. It's such a weird scenario we're in here, but this is wonderful.
We were teammates, and we've been friends for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And we were teammates for a while. So as teammates, what was the worst bit of advice I ever gave you?
Probably something along the lines of like, it's really easy, just do this. And I'm like, you're really just Dario Franchitti, so it's a lot easier for you.
I'm blushing now. I'm not sure that's the case. I remember giving you advice once at Mid-Ohio and you went out and out-qualified us all. It was rather embarrassing.
Yeah, that's, every now and again, I hit it.
I don't know about that. I think you're doing yourself a disservice.
I actually thought I was always really... I almost thought that when I was racing in England and living there that I wasn't brave enough because we would go to Thruxton. And Thruxton's so fast, all the corners are wide open. And I was always slow. And I thought, maybe I'm just not brave enough. And when I came to the States and the car was more comfortable for me and I could get into the corner with comfort, I realized that actually that's not the case. So anyway, I appreciate that, but it's always a work in progress. But I learned that I'm actually just brave enough at least.
Yeah, I will tell you something. Bravery is not an issue here. Trust me. So, what's been the hardest thing for you getting used to the stock car? I haven't done it myself, obviously. Made the jump from stock car, from IndyCar to stock car. What's been the hardest thing?
I mean, I'd be curious what you think, but I think that it's all the same, but it's all different. I mean, it's still racing, so if it's good, you get in and you go, but I don't always know why it's not good. And also then, because there's so many things that link to another, so if you don't drive in hard enough, it doesn't load the stops up enough, it doesn't get the splitter down enough, the bar doesn't twist right, there's all kinds of things that one leads to the next. And so it's, your driving has to be on point each time from the very get-go. There's so many times in the very beginning where we'd start with the setup, we'd go around in a circle, and by the last practice we'd be right back where we started because I just didn't know how to drive it. So I think that's been hard, and then just the aerodynamics. I've been saying, especially being at a place like Daytona, that what's in front of the driver in an Indy car matters completely. And what's behind the driver in a stock car is the only thing that matters. So that's a real juxt of brain position to only worry about what's behind you, yet you need to keep this quarter to half car distance in front of you. And if you take your eyes off the road, you're afraid you're going to drill the car in front of you and cause an accident. So it's definitely different.
I always felt it was a moving target too. I could never feel the limit, and the limit of the car kept moving too.
Yeah, and the tires change so much more. Like in a weekend, the very first laps of the weekend are the fastest in a stock car, but in an Indy car, it's the last laps of the weekend. So everything is quite flip-flopped, and even just the way that we describe the car. I can't imagine what my first crew chief, Tony Uri Jr., was thinking when I was like understeer, oversteer. I mean, I don't use those terms anymore, but even when we refer to the car, we refer to the car in the front with a stock car, and in the Indy car, we refer to the back. So it's just all very different, but it's all the same. It's all racing.
It would be like a cricket player going and playing baseball, right?
Yeah, I sure.
Yeah.
I watched cricket twice.
I've watched it once. How can a sport go on for 3 days and they draw?
It sounds thrilling. Sounds like you need a lot of beer.
You do. So, one of the things with a stock car I struggled with was the heat at first. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. I do think that is the hardest thing as far as hydration goes. There's way more that goes into the hydration part of it than in Indy cars. I mean, it was always important to be hydrated, but in a stock car, you can pay some pretty bad repercussions that night and the day after or so because of dehydration issues. So we have as much cooling as we possibly can in there. But of course, you start flipping a bunch of switches on, you start pulling horsepower. So, your ego says, don't do that, go faster, don't turn everything on. So anyway, it's something, but it's something that you have to chase for a few days before. So I try not to drink too many drinks of alcohol, before.
The night before?
Yeah, just a couple. Just kidding.
So you were a character in the EA game this year. You did voiceover stuff as well?
Yeah, I've actually done voiceover stuff for quite a few different games, and it's kind of weird. I remember going into studio one time, and the guy was like, "Unless you break a sweat, you're not doing it right." And they were feeding me like green apples because apparently on the mic, like your green apples get rid of like the crackling that your mouth makes when it's. Like,
I learned something here.
From the saliva or whatever. So I was eating green apples, and sure enough, like you work up a sweat by delivering these lines in such dramatic fashion. So I'm not really sure if I broke a sweat with the EA lines or not, but that's my experience in voiceovers. And it's been cool. I've actually done some voiceover stuff for some like Nickelodeon programs, some Mickey and the Roadster Racer stuff, and yeah, it's been kind of cool. And it's actually well, it's pretty easy. You don't have to get dressed. Well, I do get dressed. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to look good, and you don't even need makeup.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love those events. I don't have to wear makeup.
Yeah, I know. Otherwise it's such a pain in the butt, right? It just takes hours.
Especially when you get to my age. It starts to all the wrinkles.
What do you find is the most helpful product that you use to keep your youthful image?
I don't even know. I don't use anything. I'm so just not.
You don't wash your face or use lotion?
No, shampoo.
You know what it is? It's living in England and having no sunshine. I really attribute maybe my good skin to having my 16 to 19-year-old years living in England with no sunshine, because I would have been in the tanning bed at home, just ripping it apart.
You are learning so much here, guys. DP. Oh, we gotta go. Getting total wound up here. Danica, thank you. All the best for the Daytona 500 and the rest of the season.
Thank you. We don't really need to listen to him, though, do we?
No.
Yes, whatever.